Hollywood.
Yeah.
I believe that's 15 yards. Actually, it's a 10-yard delay of game penalty against the Fourth and Frames crew. We're going to start it with good field position. And as they say, defense wins championships. IDP talk will definitely get a championship from Shoot the Gap. I love those guys. Doesn't really matter exactly how long they talk. That's the problem too. Is here's long-winded guy number one talking, shit on long-winded guys number two, and it's week one of the fantasy football season. If there's not a time to get hyped and talk all fantasy aspects, it's this week. JJ said, "Let's go, baby. Let's." He does love the IDP talk. Let's get some news and notes for IDP. First and foremost, Hollywood, really glad to have you back, buddy. I know that, what life happens, and I'm just glad that you're part of my life and the IDP life, and I love you and glad that you're with me, man.
Wow, so you're kicking Kerry off this trip and taking me? Is that what I just heard?
That is speculation right now, currently. I would say that I don't think there's enough money out there for people to have that happen because, number one, I would need somewhere to stay forever because I'd be kicked out of the house. And two, I would need surgery to have my nether regions reattached when they are removed. So let's just assume that it's her and I going, and you'll just deal with it.
Fine.
I know. I'm sorry, man. Hey, let's go from some negative, bad news to some really, really positive news. Nick Bosa.
Late minute news.
Wow. 5-year, $170 million. You knew it had to get done. Nick Bosa signs with the San Francisco 49ers in a deal that just immediately puts the relief of people. Let me ask you this. You paid attention to drafts before all this and during all this. How far was Nick Bosa falling as a result? Because I didn't see him fall that far. I saw him go from like the defensive lineman, 1, 2 to maybe fall into 4. I saw people, I saw TJ White go ahead of him, which isn't uncommon, but I saw Bosa slip just a little bit. Is that what you saw as well?
Yeah. And I for the most part, he didn't move at all, right? I think where you really saw some concern or worry was like leagues that are drafted this week, right? Like redraft leagues or some leagues that kind of started towards the end of last week, smaller leagues. I think that's kind of where you saw some concern because until today, I kind of figured something would get done, but here we are just 2 days away. And I was like, oh, this is getting a little tight here.
It got real tight. I mean, it was close, but luckily he's part. I have Nick Bosa, so many places that that collective sigh that you heard of relief was me exhaling because I didn't want to miss out weeks. And he should say, from everything I've read, he's going to jump right back into week 1 and not miss snaps, etc. So a person who might miss some snaps, don't really know quite yet. L'Jarius Sneed, he did return to practice. I personally am very interested to see his usage on the field. As we saw last year towards the end, he had moved really more from that slot kind of big nickel. It was kind of a hybrid role that really they were utilizing him in. And then what we saw at the end of the season, he was moved out into an outside corner position. Trent McDuffie was moving around. His IDP value is extremely tied to his snaps closer to the line of scrimmage and being around the ball, correct?
Yeah. I mean, he had a big year last year. Again, the snap usage, and it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. So I got to think how much is impacted by Chris Jones not being up front, right? Which is kind of our next note. But, when you have a strong pass rush or front line, that kind of helps your secondary a little bit. So there's layers to it. But as far as Snead, I think he'll be okay as long as he's healthy. I think he may start a little slow, I suspect, the first week or so. But after that, I think he'll be, as long as he's healthy,
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll see the same Snead that we've seen kind of.
I sure hope so from a Kansas City fan perspective. And like you said, there's been no progress in the contract talks with Chris Jones. He said today that if he signed today, he's playing tomorrow. I don't know how much of that I would believe, but at the same time, I don't think that they're going to stop him from being on the field if that happens. As of right now, Thursday evening at 10:17 Eastern, or Wednesday evening, I apologize, 10:17 Eastern, he has not signed. So I'm not expecting it. I think that this week 8 holdout is looking more and more like a scenario that I don't want to see. That just kills everybody. But, let's move on. Like the Chiefs might have to with that. On a positive news is that Brian Burns, who is in contract situations, did return to practice today as far as a participation or a participant. So he who had missed some time was kind of, taking a firm stance, but appearing at, practices, whereas Chris Jones isn't appearing with anything. Burns did get in practice, helmet, pads, and was ready to roll. Shaq Leonard, on the other hand, is still in concussion protocol. I have, maybe a little thing to talk about Shaq Leonard in a little bit later. So we'll skip past that and come back later. Jamal Adams is out for week 1. How many weeks do you expect Jamal Adams to miss? What's your forecast?
Man, I don't know. Honestly, I think I'm about done with Adams, and I think you could probably say that about this group of three, right? Leonard, Adams, and Young. I'm just kind of. There's no question that they're talented and they're game changers when they're healthy, but when it's been multiple years and multiple seasons of the same old routine of not being there or not being dependable, at some point you kind of got to cut bait. So um, he's out for week 1. I think from what I read, he was kind of close. So maybe he comes back week 2. I guess it's just really a waiting game to see. If he's healthy and on the field, then I think he's worth a start. But until then, you're kind of handcuffed with what you can do with him.
It'd be interesting to see how Julian Love, Ryan Neal, some of the other names contribute into that situation as an overall perspective. So before we jump on, let's see. So he needs to start 2. Snead is number 24 defensive back on your site. Seems low. Or Hufanga, Love, Neal, Jalen Thompson. I am telling you, that is my take on L'Jarius Snead is at 24. It is low. It's probably lower than consensus. But I personally, after watching him be the outside corner, his IDP value is significantly less if he plays that role exclusively. Look at many of the corners. Any of the corners that are up high enough, for the most part, are usually your slot corners and or kind of at least splitting snaps between the two. If Snead doesn't do that, then I have him closer to a DB3 overall, just because it's more volatile. And I don't like volatility when I'm doing my rankings. But that being said, the volatility might also kick me in the ass because there's a good chance that he actually, doesn't play outside and he does go back to the position that he's more commonly at. And if that's the case, then, I was wrong. So, but who would you say? So he has to start 2. Hollywoods, what you got?
Oh, start 2 of. Oh man, that's tough. Who did you pick?
I didn't pick yet. I'm letting you go.
Oh, man, I don't know. Give me my options again because my brain's racing.
It's okay. Yeah, his options right now it's would you start Snead, Hufanga, Ryan Neal, Jalen Thompson, Julian Love? I'm starting Jalen Thompson for 1 for sure. I'm probably going to start.
Yeah, I would start definitely Thompson. I think I got to go Hufanga.
Yeah, I would too. And I have the same feeling on Hufanga kind of as I do for Snead, is that they moved his snaps around quite a bit. One thing that you guys are going to pay if you check over at Fantasy and Frames, Chris and I are doing a segment or a combination where we're taking a look at the total snaps played by position from a week-to-week perspective and seeing any volatile changes. What that's going to do is hopefully be a key identifier for some of these linebackers that might be or well, more defensive backs that might be at the line of scrimmage, might be playing outside. Because if you can get 1 week ahead of the curve and you can find that corner that's playing in the slot or vice versa, you can make that move on the waiver wire. So pay attention for more of that to come. We'll have some of that after week 1, and you and I can talk about that next week on Shoot the Gap here.
Right.
Chase Young not cleared after suffering the stinger. The hits keep coming for Chase Young. Your Titans signed Travis Gibson, which they need pass rush depth, so that's a good signing. Don't know if it's IDP relevant signing, but it's, you never know. We've seen some crazy things happen. There's no doubt about that. And then Rashawn Gary.
Well, it's interesting.
Go ahead. No, please.
Yeah, I think it's a little interesting that they signed Gibson because they got Rashad Weaver, who they really like, the young guy. Of course, they got Harold Landry, and then they signed Arden Key, who supposedly they like a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a depth piece, but it's kind of intriguing that you're going and signing another pass rusher here. So
I liked Arden. So Arden Key, even there was talks at the same time last year with Jacksonville that they were saying that Arden Key might push some of the other defensive ends. I think Dwayne Smoot and who was the other, where they could play
Allen.
Inside and out. Yeah, and it wasn't pushing Josh Allen as much as it was going to push Trayvon Walker. Sorry. They were going to determine how to use Trayvon Walker and that, and it was rather interesting for sure. Drew wants to know, Kyler Gordon going to be the slot corner for Chicago, and all identifiers for I think he is, because I think you'll see Jalen Johnson on the outside and Tyreek Stevenson, rookie, but that's what I don't see anybody else is going to step up, and Kyler Gordon is definitely best suited for that nickel / corner role. If you ask me, I don't see anybody else on the roster that I like more. Interesting perspective there, especially because they're, the team as a whole, their defensive backs took a hit, for me, just a little bit between Jaquan Brisker and even Eddie Jackson, just because the addition of TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, I think, really solidifies that linebacking crew that they didn't have last year after they got rid of Roquan, right?
Right. Yeah, and they really like Tyreek Stevenson, the rookie from Miami. They really like him. So, I think Gordon's going to be that nickel guy. So
it's worth paying attention to, especially in leagues that start a cornerback. That's the kind of guys I'm going to go for. And if there's anything, it's be ahead of the curve, identify those guys, and, most likely avoid the outside guys. Malcolm, what's up, man? Good to see you. Just done a draft and drafted Quay Walker, Jack Campbell, and Tremaine Edmonds. What do you guys think I did with them three? I'll start Hollywood because I am pretty high on Quay Walker this year. I have him as my LB, I believe, 15 for the season. We've talked about linebacker quite a bit. As long as he can keep his temper under control, he has the ability and the skill set to be a multifaceted linebacker. I think you agree there. What's your take on Campbell and Tremaine Edmonds as stars? What do you think Jack Campbell's usage will be early on?
I mean, they seem to love him, right? That's all we heard coming out of training camp and all that good stuff. So I think he fits exactly what Dan Campbell wants to do defensively. Mm-hmm. And I've said it time and time again, you don't move up in the first round and take a player to have him sit the bench. It just does not happen unless he's just a complete bust, which I have a hard time believing. I mean, if you go back to his days at Iowa, he was just a monster for them tackling. So I like him. I mean, I like Campbell. I think if he starts out the gate right away, he's got a good chance for Rookie of the Year.
I think the one thing that I'll notice from this draft is that most likely by taking Quay, Campbell, and Tremaine Edmonds, probably had a chance to build up on that defensive line, which may be a solid move, if you ask me, because I think you have a solid 1 in Quay. I think Campbell's a solid low 2, early 3. Tremaine Edmonds is, I think he's a middle low LB2, but I think that there's upside there as long as TJ Edwards doesn't hog too much of the tackles.
Yeah, I thought he did. I mean, to have Campbell as your third linebacker behind Edmonds and Quay, that's an awesome job. Because you're not to me, that tells me you're not reaching at the position, right? You got your 2 studs, and then you're getting the high potential guy as a third guy. I kind of like that.
Absolutely. And do you rank your site for week 1? I do. I will have those ready. I need to hit publish and have that going. I was a little behind on getting that. I promise I shall. No need. Jorge does have Julian Love at 15. We love Julian Love. Yeah, that's the way to get say that. But yeah, the opportunity there is great. But if Jamal Adams is healthy, Jamal Adams is playing, there could be a snap conundrum. But as they said in Seattle, he is severely underrated. Speaking of Julian Love, so the team likes him. If the team likes him, he's going to be on the field. And if he's on the field, he's going to be beneficial for you. George, hello. I need some advice. I have Kyle Hamilton. Say no more. You have Kyle Hamilton. You're set. As my starting safety with Jordan Poyer on my bench. I just realized Jamal Adams is on waivers. Is it worth dropping Poyer to pick up Adams and stash him on IR? Hollywood, I'm going to guess that you're going to say no to that, but I don't know. I mean, is it worth?
Well, here's the thing. I agree and I disagree. I agree that if you can pick up Adams and stash him on your IR, that's a good move, because if he's healthy and can return, then you've got basically an extra pick, or however you want to look at it.
Yes.
I don't think I would drop Poyer to do it. I would look somewhere. I would look for another weak spot to drop a player that's not as good as Poyer.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, if you have time to do it, you may, if it's in a both mixed IDP and offense, drop your kicker if you can just go get somebody. I mean, or your defense if you still have them, players and position wise, and make the move, stash them on IR, and then go pick them up. But as JJ Adams is washed, yeah, he may be, but you know what? He plays a role that is really, really beneficial for IDP point scoring, and so it is. But we could also see the cliff and fall off and completely be irrelevant. Malcolm once in a while could take on Kazir White. I think we have the same kind of feeling, is that Kazir White's going to be extremely valuable for a team that's really bad. He will have some, maybe some if weeks here and there, but I think as a whole, I think 8 tackles a game is something that wouldn't shock me. Plus, for someone that's got, decent speed, that offense is going to be so bad. I think Kazir White's going to be on the field. I mean, I think 1,100 snaps is a possibility.
You think their offense is going to be that bad?
I do. Do you? No, you don't?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure yet. That's kind of why I was asking. I'm kind of on the fence.
It's all right. Someone's trying to call.
Oh, is that a draft pick you're making? Does that hear that?
Not. No, that was me.
Somebody's on the clock here.
Someone's making a phone call trying to say, hey, I need this IDP advice. And all these guys are hogging the airwaves with their wonderful questions. But yes, their offense is going to be terrible. Who's their starting quarterback? You don't know, because it hasn't been announced. No one even knows. If it's Josh Dobbs, come on. Michael Wilson, Hollywood Brown, James Conner, I know. But yeah, Kazir White.
I think it's going to be Dobbs to start.
No, we're not talking about Josh Dobbs and quarterbacks for Arizona. We're moving on. Nope. Not doing it. And George says he can only drop a safety for a safety. Interesting twist.
Ooh.
I hate to drop Poyer and lose him.
Yeah. That's. I don't think I would drop Poyer. I mean, he's going to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a little older, but you know what you're getting in him. He's a playmaker. He gets interceptions. That's a hard sell for me. I mean, yeah, I'd keep Poyer. I wouldn't do that and pick up Adams. Yeah, I'd just keep Poyer.
Gotcha. So Malcolm wants to know, as far as it takes Jordan Brooks and Denzel Perryman. Yes or no to this question? Jordan Brooks plays 15 games this year. Yeah, I know. Do you trust that he's returning? I don't know if he's good. Do you think he plays in week 1? I don't know if he plays a full complement of snaps. I worry a little bit about that situation. I mean, he's recovering faster than I think anticipated, if I'm not mistaken, far from a doctor. But I mean, as of right now, I think he's supposed to play. I love the value that we got.
But 15 games I think that's the perfect over-under, right?
If you get him for 15 games, where he was going, I think was risky 2 months ago. Probably still risky even 2 weeks ago, but value should be there in spades for sure.
I think if you can get him week 1,
Yeah.
and get those 15 games, then I think you're good, right? Because
Hmm.
that's going to take you through the fantasy playoffs for the most part. So I think you're good if you can get him to start the season.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
he's kind of slow coming back, then that kind of changes things a little bit. I mean, I know it's good to have him down the playoff stretch, but yeah, that 15
Well,
games, I think that's a stretch right now.
what about Denzel Perryman? He mentions Denzel Perryman, Houston Texans, starting next to Christian Harris, who had been banged up a little bit as of the last couple days from what I've seen. I don't know how serious that really is, but I think that Denzel Perryman has proven when given opportunities, he can be a tackle monster. What do you think of
Well,
Denzel Perryman?
here's the thing: they don't have nobody else, right? They've got Perryman and Harris as their starters. They
Mm-hmm.
drafted To'o, who I think is going to be an eventual starter for them because he's that quarterback of the defense, right?
Right.
They've still got Neville Hewitt. They've got Blake Cashman.
Corey
Corey
Littleton.
Littleton.
Yeah.
Stop with that nonsense.
I know. I
Jesus
know.
Christ. You know what? The Corey Littleton and Jalen Smith truthers, God bless their hearts.
Bless,
Jeez.
bless their little hearts. They how they're doing. Hey, I'm a Kyle Hamilton truther, and George says he got him by watching a previous video. So I live and die by it.
Nice.
Let's ride Kyle Hamilton, George. Come on, we're gonna keep this going.
Yep.
I sure hope so. And then Landry, number 16 on your side, week 1. You guys agree this high? Yeah, I think that's the upside play with Landry is that it's sack dependent, but man, when he was healthy, and Hollywood, you can attest to this more than anybody, he was on a pace of, 12 to 14 sacks in that season. And with a full complement of health, I don't know if there's anybody that's going to really, really help him on that defensive line. Not if help him, I'm sorry, hurt him, because Jeffrey Simmons, when you line up next to him, that is the cheat code of cheat codes when you get the opportunity. And who's their other defensive tackle they got there? They brought someone in.
It should be. Well, not really. The projected is going to be Simmons and Tierra Tart. Tart's going to play the nose, right?
Danico Autry's back. That's who had missed some time.
Autry's back.
Yeah. So I like that. I mean, that's my 2 cents at least. I'm fine with Landry. I can understand his ranking can go anywhere from 16 to 35. And the separation between that is him getting to the quarterback or having maybe 2, 3 or 4 extra tackles. That's the one thing with IDP that's crazy. That ranking from 16 to 30 is a hair, and it's one splash play and you're there. But
if you can get 60 tackles and 10 sacks out of him, you take it and run.
Absolutely. I think for where you're getting him too, because he was damn near free. He's gotten more steam. Melissa says hi, y'all. We say hi right back to you, Melissa. She has been a wonderful addition to the chat for sure. George, thank you guys. And Bobby Okereke and Ernest Jones, finally last 2 pieces there. How high do you want to go on both? You think either or both could creep into that LB1 conversation this year, I guess? Probably, maybe just this week we'll start off.
Well, I think Okereke is already in the top 10, top 12, right? Yeah, easily. That's where I had him in the top 12. Sorry, who was Ernest Jones?
Ernest Jones,
I think he has a good chance to push in there. Yeah, I think he'll be. I don't think he's going to be in the top 8, but I could see him pushing into that 10, 11, 12 range.
All right. Well, let's, if we're taking bets on where we think people will finish, let's take some bets on some IDP prop bets. And if you want to do some prop bets, or if you ever want to do any type of betting whatsoever in general, even Underdog Fantasy, they'll have 100% match up to $100 using the promo code FRAMES. Another great spot to do some just general week-to-week bets. But this particular bet that I'm talking about are IDP defensive props for the season. Let's start with number 1, Hollywood. Let's talk a little bit about some of the ones that I think the better odds out there to make some cash. This is the most regular season sacks of 23-24. So this season, who will have the most sacks? And some of the odds, like the odds on favorite is Myles Garrett, followed by Nick Bosa, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby. Regular cast of characters. Who is someone deep down that maybe you think? Let me ask you a question. What about Jalen Phillips at plus 3,500? What about Joey Bosa at
Lead in
plus
sacks.
4,000? Yeah.
I would take Phillips over Joey Bosa.
They're basically about to say they're very close to each other. Let's dig a little bit deeper. So to answer that question, this is a good way sometimes to identify maybe some upside plays when you were talking about Harold Landry. Harold Landry is a plus 5,000 right there with Josh Allen. Josh Allen is an intriguing one at plus 4,000 simply because we saw the pressures last year not turn into sacks, just like Jalen Phillips. I love both of those two this year. That if the sack total matches the pressure total, you could be in for a really good season. It's just really hard to beat out Bosa, Garrett, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, Hassan Reddick. Those are just really, really, really good edge rushers. That
what's the odds on Judon?
Great question. Plus 3,000. He is the 11th, 12th overall. So really high. Alex Highsmith is at plus 4,000 ahead of Josh Allen, Harold Landry, Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith plus 5,000. That's not a bad bet right there.
No, not too bad.
If the Hard Knocks bump,
I think I would.
Go ahead.
I think I like the Judon though.
I do too. I really do. I think that Jorge, first of all, when listening to this, will love you saying that because he's been one of the biggest Matthew Judon supporters way before it was popular and fun to be Matthew Judon supporter. And he has been right the entire
he
time.
Had 15.5 last year.
Oh, dude, I traded him to Jorge a year and a half ago for Blake Martinez and Chase Young, I believe is what it was. I thought I stole that trade. And lo and behold, I got crushed. Look at neither one of them played. Blake Martinez, I know, but in hindsight. And it might not have been both. It might have been regardless. Either way. So Judon is a great call. I was going to say the Hard Knocks bump. Quinnen Williams has looked amazing. And there he is right there, Matt Judon, baby. He knows it. Jorge, an easy $50 on Matt Judon will return. Let's see. 1,500. So there you go.
Ooh.
Sounds like a good
sack leader. I mean, if you're kind of looking for, I don't want to say long shot, but if you're looking for some plus money on a outside shot, I think Judon's your best case. I mean, Bosa, Garrett, Reddick, Parsons, Crosby, those are probably your front runners, right? So if you're looking for somebody outside of that group, I think Judon's the perfect one out there. It's the odds are, he's not so far out of it that his odds are astronomical, right? You're not betting plus 6 or plus 7 like a true long shot. He's got a legitimate shot that he could cash in for you.
Yeah. And you go down far enough and there's some interesting names that we've seen, guys that have had solid seasons as far as sack production. Montez Sweat. If he could ever put it together, I can't quit Marcus Davenport's athletic ability, but I should quit everything else about him. That's just bad news. But we see some of them. And then so most regular season tackles and assists, the regular cast of characters at the top. Aluakon, Bolton, Roquan, Zaire Franklin. Jordan Brooks is actually the 5th highest on that list as well. So it sure seems that Vegas or FanDuel Sportsbook believes Jordan Brooks will play a healthy complement of games. Or they realize maybe a lot of people overlook it and just throwing some cash at him. And earlier, George, also Aiden Hutchinson's season. No doubt he was up there really high rank as far as the odds go too. So could be a definitely interesting pick, especially with James Houston and Romeo Okwara returning this year now after that injury and add some stability across that defensive line. Who's a name at linebacker who really we think could be there? Let me give you a couple names here. Number one,
I'm curious. One thing I want to ask first.
Go ahead.
What's the odds on Bobby Wagner? I'm just curious.
That's a great question because that's where I was creeping down to. And Bobby Wagner is around the 18th odds, plus 3,400. He is sandwiched between Josie Jewell and Devin White, who I think is another good odds. I like Devin White, by the
I
way.
think he passes both of them.
He's right. He's sandwiched between them. I think you may be right. I love Bobby Wagner, especially where you're getting him.
Man, talking
Some of
about a
the
long shot plus 34. I might put some. I might put a 20 spot on that just as a long shot, right? I kind
Yep.
of like that.
What about Shaq Leonard at plus
Because
8,000?
Seattle's proven they can support two high score or high tackle linebackers. I mean, they've done it before, and Wagner was a part of that. So,
no, I really like that. I really like if you're talking about just pure tackle upside. I mean, I don't know why I am higher on him than most, but I think Cole Holcomb at plus 5,000 isn't a terrible spot, or Devondre Campbell at plus 5,000. Those are two guys right there that should just be around the ball on defenses that personally I think will be on the field a little bit more than others. Just again, not necessarily saying there's direct correlation to it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
JJ says it's also
I'll say
Gary,
this.
go ahead.
My favorite to win the linebacker tackle period is Nick Bolton.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that. My biggest, and I think that it's actually going to play out well, because last year the one thing with Bolton that really helped out was he played an exorbitant amount of snaps, which was really helpful, just like Oluwakan. And if you don't get that same type of season, those totals will definitely go down. Well, I think Bolton will be on the field.
I think Oluwakan's got more competition than Bolton does on his team. Like Oluwakan's got Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma and those guys. Bolton don't have that same type of competition eating into his attempts or opportunities.
Absolutely. No, I don't disagree. I think that that's is one of the reasons why some of these names are standing out. Like, I think CJ Mosley is a good bet. You know, he's plus 2,000, but that's not right there. So let's go back here real quick, though. JJ says Rashawn Gary, briefly touched on him. He's plus 5,000, same as Judon and Phillips. Yeah.
See,
I understand.
Judon's a little more proven at a higher level. So I think I hold Judon up there. I think Phillips and Gary are close. But somewhere in the back of my mind, this injury thing with Gary kind of looms, right? And it's probably stupid on my part to think that. If he's healthy and a go, then hey, but that's just kind of how my brain thinks a little bit. But I would take Judon over those two, I think.
I would as well. Well, it would be close. I like all of them. I actually am higher on Jalen Phillips than probably most, not everybody by any means, but I think that, he's my defensive lineman. He's my number 6. So if people are ever following my rankings, everybody's going to have probably Kyle Hamilton and Jalen Phillips. That'll be the staple for most everybody's team, and that's fine. And Harold Landry's plus 15,000. Again, coming off of injury and first season back, that's going to bring his odds way down. But plus 15,000, Harold Landry gets on a little burner right there, and all of a sudden you're able to get some tickets with me and bring it.
Hey, he's playing in the AFC South with what? A new quarterback in Indy, a new quarterback in Houston. Crazier things have happened. I'm just saying.
It's not like the Indianapolis offensive line has gotten that much better by any means. Not like, Houston did get better.
And they don't have Jonathan Taylor for the first 4 weeks, so.
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt. They're very interesting. And Malcolm says Divine Diablo. I don't see Divine Diablo on the odds list for this, but I really do like Divine Diablo. If Christian Roseboom is plus 13,000 and Jack Campbell's plus 12,000, I have to say that you put them right around there, and it's not bad odds. You know that we're a Divine Diablo team. So those are some of the odds. Each week we can take a look at maybe some of the weekly odds if presented to us, and we can kind of talk about a little bit of those and do some parlays if we want. But I know we're not a sports betting show as much as we are IDP content, which leads me to an area that I want to talk about with you, because I find that actually talking football might not be as exciting as talking just straight IDP numbers exclusively, but there's an allusion to that, as in we can look at a situation and we can dictate and hopefully formulate a plan that says, hey, this person might be a better shot as a result. And what should we pay attention to? And so we're going to look into our crystal ball, or Hollywood. We're going to forecast into week 1, and we get to see what we see. And it's going to tell us a couple things that's going to lead us into an idea or at least a forecast of some players that we may be interested. Let's go to Dallas. There's a linebacker situation there with LVE, and then the number 2 is who? We don't really know exactly how many snaps Damone Clark will get. I am the preeminent, IDP Damone Clark fan, which is fine. That's who I love, and I'll stand by him, neck injury and all. But
God bless your heart.
God bless my sweet little heart. That man is a beast, and he will be fantastic. But I want to see what he does. DeMario and Overshown, gone. Pew, out of here. Doesn't matter. LVE, let's be honest. Yep. I don't know how he keeps getting back on the field. Him and Alex Anzalone. I'm not knocking LVE's talent. I'm just saying the guy's bionic at this point. He's the $100 million man. That's actually Nick Bosa, but he is the $100 million made of $100 million man. I want to see how many snaps he used. All right, let's have an over-under for you. You're going to look into your crystal ball. Look into your crystal ball. Come on. You got to do the animations for the people on there, and you're supposed to do this. That's what they did back in the day. Oh, the Budweiser ball.
My red ball.
It's getting fuzzier and fuzzier as you look into it. It just gets blurrier and blurrier. Oh, you can see clearly now. George, thank you so much. Finally, a top-tier IDP show. Sucks it took me so long to find it. Hey, we got 18 weeks together now.
Thanks,
we're just
George.
starting. We're just, jump in. He called shotgun, so get in the back, Hollywood. All right, what do you think?
Well,
Damone Clark.
me and Nick we are really good, when we get Jorge and Gator and them out of the way.
Yeah, no, exactly. Shed that skin of incompetence and some incontinence probably too.
You get rid of those boat anchors, we can fly.
Exactly. You are definitely closer to the dinghy than either of us three. That's for sure. Does Damone Clark see 75% of the snaps at linebacker this week?
Yeah, I think so. I
love it.
Yeah.
That production's going to be there, man. I really do. I think it's, huge game. I think he's going to show his ability sideline to sideline. My rankings come out tomorrow. They will be out tomorrow. I promise. I've got a show on the Better Sports Network at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Tune in there if you want to come in and check out. I'll definitely prop up the fantasy and frames as much as possible. I'll try to throw some IDP in there, probably get slapped right back, but I'll do what I can. And after that, I will have the rankings. I'll have Jorge. I'll have my articles and everything out. But I have my clairvoyance ready to go. We got Damone Clark. We know he's going to get snap time. Let's go to Kansas City tomorrow night. Hollywood. You don't have to look too far into it. Chris Jones. We talked about him earlier. Sitting out. Furious George Karlaftis. What type of production will he have? Will he take that next step and prove to IDP managers that he is worthy of being a top 4, as in defensive line forward? Not a top 4 overall, just top 48 option for this season.
Yeah, I think he's going to push there.
All right. I like that style. You look at you sucking up. You really want to go to LA with me. So you're going to say what I want to hear, which is perfect because this next spot here will set you right up to get.
Well, I figure it's either going to be you or Carrie. One of you is just taking me.
Well, that's true. And it would be Carrie. Carrie would rather take you. I'm sure she knows that you guys would be.
Of course she would.
Be drinking. And I hope the drinks are covered. I doubt they are, but we'll see. We'll turn this free trip into a real expensive one real quick. What's hasn't been free was Kyle Hamilton. This is your second chance to really, build up Nate. Kyle Hamilton. We know that last year he really, really excelled down the stretch when he went into that slot role, was able to demonstrate his pass rush ability. I don't necessarily expect like a 20% pressure rate again, but whatever. We saw that he was all around the ball, extremely smart. Had some errors here and there, screwed up, missed some coverages, etc. We know that happens to a lot of rookies. I'm interested in where Kyle Hamilton plays. No Chuck Clark. Will he play? Are they going to run too high safety like they've done before in the past? Are they going to stick with more of that single high and let him stay down in the slot? Where do you expect him to play the majority?
Oh, that's a good question. I think he's definitely going to be the strong safety, right? So I can see him being down in the box quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
when they need to. Like on rundowns, I think he kind of plays down in the box a little bit. But I think he's a Swiss Army knife. I think they kind of
I do
use him
too.
everywhere because he can cover, he can play against the run. I mean, he's young. I mean, there's a reason they let Chuck Clark go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's something special. So I think they're going to use him kind of everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, and I do too. And that's my take. And that's what a portion of this segment is definitely designed to do, is maybe not necessarily for us to answer these questions, but more or less say, all right, let's see the situation and we can discuss next week and how that impacts. Because let's say Kyle Hamilton and they run, too high safety and he stays in that almost a free safety-esque type role, or just stays deep and they let everybody else they have across the front seven just attack. If that's the case, my overall rankings of Kyle Hamilton as number 3 really would get crushed. And so I'm optimistic. I think Houston, like we talked about, new quarterback situation, they're going to try to run with Dameon Pierce the entire time. I think that's going to be the game. And if that's the case, they should move Kyle Hamilton up enough. He's solid in run defense and was near the top. And actually, I think he was at the top amongst rookie safeties in run stopping. So pay attention to Kyle Hamilton's position. Same thing applies to Isaiah Simmons. We know we need to watch what New York does. We don't know what they're going to do. We can talk about him in just a little bit as well. We talked earlier about Jet Campbell. The Detroit Lions breakdown at linebacker has been an enigma over the last 2 to 3 years. We know it was Rodrigo, and it was Derek Barnes, and it's Alex Anzalone. Now it's Jack Campbell. Keep your eyes on that, because do you think there can be 2 linebackers from Detroit that can actually be relevant this year?
Mm, 2 from Detroit.
No. You don't have to say yes. You can say no.
If you say relevant, I'll say yes. But if you're saying like LB1, LB2, mid LB3, I think there's only one. I think Detroit's a little better than what people are thinking, so that might limit some opportunities. But I think there's only one linebacker I really want in Detroit,
and that's
Campbell.
fair.
So.
And I'm right there with you. I really am. So, JJ wants to know our thoughts on Dax Hill. Me personally, I really like Dax Hill. Yeah, you love him. Okay, there we go. We're in agreement. Michigan safety looked the part, gets signed, and when he gets drafted to Cincinnati, you see the writing on the wall that it says, hey, he is our safety of the future. They go and they wholesale get rid of both Bates and Bell. Dax Hill's in both. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, hey, you know what? We don't.
How many times do you see a team get rid of both of their starting safeties?
Especially when they're both like Pro Bowl safeties. It's not like they're just two. It wasn't John Johnson III and Taylor Rapp, where the Rams were like, who cares? This is 2 elite levels. So yeah, their trust in not only Dax Hill says a lot. I think he'll be everywhere. I think he's a very good value, especially for a team that will have leads. He's going to be able to be around the line of scrimmage as well as drop back, which he's been very successful at around the ball, just ball hawking at Michigan. And then he demonstrated that in brief time, even last year, on limited sample size. So I love it as well. I'm glad that we're in agreement there, because we don't always agree. But the good news is we don't have to agree, because we can then stand our own 2 feet. We can make our own case. And instead of telling each other who, why, what, or how, we get to tell everybody why we may fade or play specific guys. Give me a fade this week that you have.
Fade this week that I have. Well, hang on, my page is loading here. So the fade that I have for this week is one that's been a hot topic all off season, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we've heard his name everywhere, and that's Isaiah Simmons, right? Mm-hmm. There's been so much crazy talk about him in Arizona. Now he he's going to the Giants. I'm fading him because the big narrative was, well, Arizona didn't know how to use him or utilize him or how to play him or whatever. What's the Giants going to do with him, right? I mean, there's a lot of unknowns here. So, I mean, you're playing Dallas this week, which is a pretty good offense, right? They got
Right.
a ton of offensive weapons, Dak Prescott and CD Lamb and those guys. I think until I see something proof,
Yeah.
a couple of weeks sample, 2 or 3 week sample of how they're going to use him, where they're going to use him, I think I'm fading him right now, especially against Dallas in week 1.
And I will agree with one thing. If he is a linebacker designation as like he is on MFL in true position, I'm fading him as well. If I can start him as a defensive back, I would still be okay, but I can understand your case, especially if it's a shallow league. If you're only starting 2 defensive backs.
I'm still fading because it's so deep at defensive back.
I know. And you're right. And that's the thing is it's like, that's the challenge. But at the end of the day, I think that you're picking a lot of guys later that I think his ceiling is just high enough that it would be intriguing.
Okay, so,
but I don't disagree.
Isaiah Simmons or Jesse Bates?
Simmons.
No way.
Yep.
Get the fuck out of here. No way.
Yeah. Well, what's
Simmons or Byard?
Byard.
Okay.
Which interesting. So good segue there. What about Kevin? What would Kevin Byard be for you this week? Would he be a play or would he be a fade?
Oh yeah, he's a play because they're playing New Orleans, right? They don't have Alvin Kamara. Now I know they have Jamal Williams, but they've got a new quarterback, as you may have heard, David Carr, but they're getting Colston back. So I think they've got to gel a little bit. They've got to get these pieces to gel. So I think they're going to lean on Williams, right, until they can see what Carr can do in this receiving group. And I think Kevin Byard, Tennessee's got a thin linebacker room, right? It's pretty much Azeez Al-Shaair, and that's it. You've got Monty Rice and Jack Gibbons, who I like Gibbons more than Rice, but it's still a thin group. So with that, I think they're going to lean because they've got a Monty Hooker who can play well. So I think they're going to lean on Byard a little bit, right? A lot of tackle opportunities. He's had 100-plus tackles 2 of the last 3 seasons, and I think this could be his 3rd, and there's an ambulance going by my house, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway.
Are you recording on the
Blue
street?
Light Special, right? Kevin Byard. So, probably some crackheads blowed themselves up or something, but whatever. Anyway, hey, when you've had a few Budweisers, the blue lights at 11 o'clock at night are pretty good. So, hey, here we are. But no, I like, with a thin linebacker room, he's got the kind of proven track record of 100-plus tackles. Jesus. I just like it this week because I think, of course, the dog's sucks. I'm so sorry.
No,
it's a madhouse here. Sorry. New Orleans is going to, I think, rely on that run game with Williams and Taysom Hill. Don't forget about him. They like to run him a lot. Until they can get set and figure out what they want to do, I think Byard, with that thin linebacker room, I think that plays into him. So, 8, 9 tackles this week, I could easily see that from him.
Yeah. I think one thing Byard has really supported him is his ability to do a little bit of everything. And it wouldn't shock me if they actually do unleash him and try to get some pressure on, on the quarterback, et cetera. And so I'm right there with you, Kevin Byard. I have him early rankings as my DB, I think 8 right now on the week. So I'm in full agreement with you. Who I am probably not in agreement with Minnie is my fade of the week at defensive line. His defensive line 18 overall, and that's Alex Highsmith. I know that Highsmith is
really.
Yep. Here's the reason. I just don't necessarily believe the efficiency. I should, because there's some people that just have the production despite limited, situations, etc. So here's Alex Highsmith. Yeah, the fourth most pass rush snaps last year in 2023. Among the top 25 defensive line, actually among the top 25 in pass rush snaps, only 6 people had fewer pressures than Alex Highsmith. Of that, only a handful had less total sacks. So of the people that had fewer, pressures, or more pressures really in his case, which is everybody else, most of them failed to receive the same type of sack production. I don't know what you want to call that, sack to pressure ratio. However, I'm sure there's a more catchy name than what I just came up with, but I worry. All I worry about the inefficiencies. Here's the main culprit for why I would agree to say, hey, you know what? I bet I can find an option is Trent Williams. Trent Williams is kind of, that's, it's against San Francisco. He's going to be lined up against Trent for the majority of the game. Trent Williams allowed one pressure all last year. So I don't see this being a situation. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would definitely fade Highsmith, to be honest with you. There's a couple names down even further where I would have him. Like, I am more comfortable with Christian Wilkins than I am there. I think that I'm more comfortable. Harold Landry, I have ahead of him. Josh Allen, Kayvon Thibodeau, Jalen Phillips, and other names. But I want to do a double fade here just because I'm worried, and we talked about him earlier, is Shaq Leonard. He's the LB22. I don't necessarily trust. He's progressing in the concussion protocol, but still not 100%. Coming off injury, it just, there's a lot of issues that if he's my LB2 that I'm starting, there's too much other value out there right now that I'd rather have Kazir White this week than Shaq Leonard myself. So I'm out on Shaq this week. And as much as I wanted to play. I
agree with that.
Oh, good. See, look at us. Let's see if we can agree on this to help out JJ. He needs to start too. Harold Landry,
all right,
Rashawn Gary, Alex Highsmith, Hassan Reddick, Cameron Hayward. I have
definitely Reddick.
Yep, I was going to say I have Reddick, and then I would have probably Landry. Let's see how I have it in my rankings. Definitely Reddick for sure. And then
who's Green Bay got this week?
Who does Green Bay have? Green Bay. They play at Chicago. So I don't know if they're going to see the tackles.
And you've got Cameron Hayward.
Hayward is interesting too, because I have Hayward high just because it's so hard to rule out. But against San Francisco, I fall on that same line as Alex Highsmith, and I think I'm just going to avoid a team that usually.
I think so too. I think you're right. I think it's definitely Reddick and then Landry. I think that's, yeah.
Here's a follow-up. Would you drop one of them for Zadarius Smith? I would have Zadarius Smith over this week over Highsmith and Cameron Hayward, probably Rashawn Gary as well. But I don't know if I'd want to drop any of those names for Zadarius Smith.
Well, I don't know that I wouldn't drop him for Hayward this week.
You won't get Zadarius Smith next week. If you can get him now, is your best and probably only chance. Because watch, this Jim Schwartz defense, wide 9, him and Myles Garrett they're gonna have a decent day, not necessarily great day against Joe Burrow, because I think that he's smart enough to get rid of the ball. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Zadarius Smith at least get to him once. They did add some pieces on their offensive line, so I won't say Cincinnati got exponentially better across that line, but when you talk about Jonah Williams hopefully getting better at right tackle, but they bring in my old tackle, Orlando Brown, to protect his blind side, who has done a better job than, number one, Jonah Williams ever did. But I think that might play a key role. I think Zadarius Smith on the opposite side against Jonah Williams would be that'll be the exploitable one. So we'll see. I just don't know if I'd drop any. I would probably drop Hayward of all those names, just because I would bank on the fact that Hayward's 40 years old, and that's the only reason. But you're also talking about a 1, 2, 3, 4, probably your 4th defensive lineman if you can only start, and you only start 2 of them. You're gonna play a lot of those musical chairs each week, which kind of sucks. Here's my play of the week. Linebacker out of Miami, David Long, your old Tennessee Titan.
Love it.
Look, if you look at last year, Chargers, they were among the league leaders in points allowed to the linebacker position. For Miami, the depth at linebacker outside of Jerome Baker pretty much stops. Landon Roberts is gone. They don't have Channing Tindall, I guess, as a name, but that's it. It's just a name to throw out there. So I think that David Long will get plenty of opportunities. I think plenty of snaps will translate into plenty of production. And the Chargers, again, last year was kind of weird because why did they give up so many points to the linebacker? Was it because, Justin Herbert couldn't throw and his ribs were broken and everything else and led more funnel to the middle? Or is it the fact they just played so many snaps that linebackers were able to gobble them up? I think it's probably the latter, and that's why I'm going to take David Long. JJ, no, thank you. How do you rank Mosley, Anderson, Diablo, Kendricks, Devondre Campbell? So I tell you what, you come back to go to Fantasy and Frames tomorrow. I will put all of my rankings up. Hollywood will get his rankings up because I need to look into those, and I don't want to give you bad information. So jump in tomorrow. Shoot me a DM if you want. I'm over at Nate Markham on Twitter. Hollywood is at Hollywood Titan. DM me if you want. I'll reach out to those here. And the last segment is one that I always find fun. It's our sack lunch, where we take a look at one defensive lineman and linebacker, defensive back, whoever, who has the best bet that we would predict for a sack. I think I had a good run of 4 or 5 weeks where I didn't get one right, and I was picking multiple people. And then I had a run where I think I had multiple sacks. You had multiple sacks, and Mike had multiple sacks on like 2 or 3 cases. If we were betting, we would have made some money on those 2, 1.5 sacks plus. Who's your guy? Who's your sack lunch? Who you putting in your pail?
Yeah, so I think we need to keep some kind of tally for the season on our sack lunch. And
I will. I will have all these stored.
Some kind of bet or somewhat.
I will tell you what, you have Uber Eats or one of those things in your area, your neck of the woods, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There you go. Whoever wins, I will pay for lunch to be delivered to your house. You can maybe get Taco Bell or Burger King or whatever. Who knows?
Awesome.
We
could do that. We can do that. Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Who you got this week?
So I mean, it kind of fits, right? Sack lunch. So we're betting some food here. So
exactly.
I'm going with Cameron Jordan, right? With the defensive end for the New Orleans Saints. I've heard the narrative all off season. He's 38, 40, whatever he is.
Right,
he's not quite that old, but you get my drift.
Yep.
He's old. He's slacking. He's playing Tennessee. They've got an entirely revamped offensive line. That's something you shouldn't be overlooking. I know they've got some players, but they're still trying to figure things out. And until you actually get those 5 on the field and start getting that continuity together, that's a little worrisome, right? Plus, Tennessee's going to want to run, of course, with Henry. So the tackle opportunities will be there. But Jordan, 23rd all time with 115.5 sacks. He's no slouch when it comes to a pass rusher, right? So even though he's a little older, you give me a 1-week shot and you're giving me the Titans, who is completely unproven on opening week. I think it's a perfect storm, right? Because Tennessee's trying to find their way. They're trying to find that groove with those front 5. I think there's going to be some opportunities there for Cameron Jordan to get some sacks. I'm a huge Titans fan, but I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the game, he's got 2 sacks. I just would not surprise me, because I think there's so much uncertainty and unknown with that offensive line right now.
And I think that I'm going to take that same approach, which is what I've done every year. Rankings over at Fantasy Pros and over at Fantasy and Frames. My defensive line rankings have always been a little better than my other positions, because I try to focus on the mismatches, and it's the most easily identifiable area is who is one player mano a mano on the offensive line. And when you look at Cameron Jordan against this Titans offensive line, which regardless of how revamped they are, they still have some cohesion that needs to take place. just like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think that's going to be a major liability, not just this game, but all season. And Danielle Hunter is going to be the major beneficiary of that. I love what Danielle Hunter with full health does. And I am moving up Hunter into, I mean, I don't know how much higher I can go than 7 with him right now because it's Reddick, Watt, Bosa, Parsons, Garrett, Crosby, essentially the ones above. But I might move him to 6. I might move him ahead of Hassan Reddick just because the Patriots, and I might move him ahead of Max Crosby down. I got to figure this out tomorrow. There's no doubt. I got a lot of things to do to determine where my rankings are going to go. And speaking of rankings, one last one for us.
Yeah, so I'm kind of working on mine, and I've got Hunter at 5 right now.
Okay, all right. I don't have a problem with that. I'm right there with you, man. It's tricky to not move him that high. I mean, it could be a really, really nasty game for Baker. But last question. George wants to know our thoughts on Leonard Williams. Depending upon if you're in a league that's defensive tackle specific, of course, I think that his value is much higher. I have him and Dexter Lawrence pretty much next to back, like defensive line 4 range, just because that Dallas interior offensive line isn't. But that NFC East matchups are tricky to try to figure out because everybody comes to play. It's nasty. And those interior linemen are the ones that sometimes are the beneficiaries when Dallas is focusing on Ojulari and Thibodeau and they sneak through. If it's a defensive tackle league, I think I would probably have him as, a top 12 defensive tackle on the week, maybe top 15, because there's some really good ones now. But I don't know if I'd have much higher than that. Not defensive line overall, but just amongst defensive tackles.
Yeah, but that's still, I mean, I know he was kind of hurt last year a little bit. He missed, 5 games? But he only hit, in 12 games, he only had 2.5 sacks. So is that an aberration? Is he going to rebound and bounce back to his, 6, 7+ sack game?
Yeah.
I don't know. I need to see something from him because it looked like maybe it was due to some injuries, but he took a drop last year. So I kind of want to pump the brakes on him before I want to push him back up.
It's tricky. I'm right there with you because you do, like I said, 2020, you go from a 57 tackle, 11.5 sack season to then an 80 tackle season in 2021 with 6.5 sacks, still elite, to a good tackle production, 45 tackles in 12 games, limited snaps over in a couple of those games even too, and 2.5 sacks. Yes, I know that I can probably find better, and that's why I need to have my rankings done before getting on here so I don't randomly spout out defensive tackle 15 because I don't know what tackle. I don't know. We're gonna learn together. We're gonna learn. We're gonna learn that in about 24 hours from now, how the Chiefs looked without Chris Jones, maybe without Travis Kelce. Detroit Lions, who knows what they're going to be. We will see. Some of the crystal ball questions will be answered. Hollywood, please, take us out of here with, what type of prediction do you have on the season? Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Ooh.
Yeah, you're on the spot right now.
Oh, shit. I wasn't ready for that.
I know you weren't.
Yeah. Man, I think it's coming out of the AFC. Well, yeah, I start to say it's coming out of the AFC, but I really haven't looked at the schedules.
Let's do
this. Here you go. Top of my head.
Let's
Cincinnati, San Francisco is your Super Bowl.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I have a problem with that, but I don't think that's crazy. I think San Francisco is my NFC team. Well, I mean, but I really don't. I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan through and through. But if it is great games, and Cincinnati deserves it, and they get there, so be it. I'll get over it. We have Patrick Mahomes for the next decade. We'll be back. But yeah, I don't want to pick against Kansas City, but I think that it's really, really hard to repeat. We've seen that. And I think that if there's a case to be made, I think that, Cincinnati has as good a chance as any. I think their secondary is going to be their question mark. I think that the Chargers, of course, have a chance as always with just in general Kellen Moore led offense. But I will do this next week. I will give my prediction, and I'll cheat because I'll take a whole week. I'm Nate. This is Hollywood. We will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. Head over to fantasyandframes.com to find all of our rankings, updated information. And thank you for sticking around. If you watched the other Fantasy and Frames host of shows that we had, it's Wednesday nights. We do fantasy right. We'll see you next week.